Well, hello. Oh, okay. Got a little something in my eye there. I think I got it. All right. Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. This is not the first episode of the year, I think. But anyway, it is 2023. So, welcome to 2023. No, this isn't the first episode of the year. Sorry, I was like, it's one of those days where I'm out of it. Anyway, welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. If you are new to the show, let me tell you what Hot Topics is all about. So, Hot Topics is the podcast where we like to have a real conversation about real things, things pertaining to education, empowerment, enlightenment, employment. What else? Some popular topics, a lot of various topics that we like to discuss, all in the name of education and all in the name of enlightening you. And today is no different. So hopefully you guys will be you will be enlightened. I'm going to declare it in the universe. You will be enlightened from today's episode. And let me tell you what today's episode is. So today's episode is self-care part 2. So this is part 2 of our topic of self-care. You could check out our first installment of this topic in our episode art well not archives, but in our previous episode we done part 1. You could check that out. So part 2, self-care. So we're continuing this discussion about that, and I am excited because not only do I get to continue this topic about self-care, but I have a returning guest. I love it when the guests come back to the hot seat. So my guest is Adva Hanan. I hope I'm saying her name right. It's been a while. And let me just remind you that Adva is an early childhood educator with over 7 years of experience teaching 2 and 3-year-olds, both inside the classroom and as a camp director. So I am going to go ahead and bring her to the stage.
Hello.
Hi, Adva. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Welcome back to Hot Topics. It's been a while. Did I pronounce your name right? Hanan?
Yeah, Adva Hanan. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's get right to it. So,
Sure.
we're just gonna dive right in. So want to talk about going to well, I think I just went out a little bit. All right, so I'm just gonna have you go ahead and talk about self-care. So what does that topic mean to you?
I think it means, for me, it means doing things that make me happy, and that are outside of my work. So right now, I am um, coaching early childhood teachers both in and out of the classroom, but I also am subbing in school. So for me, self care looks like going to the gym, looks like reading a book, looks like just sitting on the couch and watching TV. It's really anything outside of work that will help me regroup and be energized for the next day or whatever I have coming up.
Okay. Sorry, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sorry, I was went out a little bit there. All right. So, yeah, so self-care is a way for you to re-energize yourself,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get back what you lost. Is that fair to say?
Essentially. I wouldn't say necessarily get back what you lost. I think um, if you are working in a job that you love, it's not necessarily something that you lose in terms of timing, but I think it definitely is to help you regroup, get yourself energized again for whatever's coming next. Um, and that also includes like being on your own, doing something for you outside of your family, if you're taking care of kids at home. Really taking that time to focus on you, because I know as teachers, as parents, we focus on everybody else but ourselves. And I think the most important thing is that we have to take care of ourselves so that we can show up and support other people.
So how do we do that? So how do we support other people? What kind of things can we do?
So, in terms of teachers, we are always making sure that our students are supported in the classroom. We are making sure that if a student is struggling, that they get the services that they need, that we really advocate for them. As parents, it's kind of the same thing. We're advocating for for our kids. We're making sure that their needs are met. It's all in that realm. And at the end of it, it could help make a person, a teacher, a parent feel depleted. And that's when your self care should come in, even if it's just 10 minutes. Do something intentionally for you so that you can continue to show up, continue to be present with your kids, with your students, whoever we're talking about.
Yeah. So let's break that down a little bit. So what are some things, well, you're particularly talking about teachers. So
Mhm.
let's dive into that a little bit. So what are some things that happen to teachers um that they need to turn to self-care? So what are some things that happen to teachers?
So, right now, the biggest thing is teachers are overworked, underpaid. So many teachers are overwhelmed by the behaviors that are happening in a classroom, um, and they are struggling to balance everything. So I don't believe that there's a 50-50 balance, but there is some kind of balance when you are a teacher, for your teacher and your life outside. And a lot of teachers are losing who they are outside of the classroom because they're so overwhelmed and so overworked. And that's when I say self care is super, super important, because when your classroom's a mess, it can feel like the rest of your life is a mess. But you have to be really diligent about taking care of yourself outside of the classroom, knowing who you are outside of the classroom, so that you can keep showing up even on those hard, difficult days.
Yeah. So when you say overworked, what do you mean?
There's a lot that goes into being a teacher. There's a lot of work that goes into being a teacher, and there's the expectation that teachers work outside of their contracted hours without being paid. That's been the expectation for a long time, and there's a big movement to try to change that, because teachers are already struggling in school. Why bring all of that home with them when they can kind of separate the two? Listen, sometimes you do have to bring work home. It's just not an option. Um, but other times there are ways to manage your time during your contracted hours. So there could be there could be lesson planning that needs to get done. There could be um, behavior management that interrupts lessons so you don't get through a full lesson. There could be assessments that need to get done that don't necessarily get done for whatever reason. um, a lot of times teachers don't have prep periods during their day, so a lot of teachers have lost prep periods, so they don't have the time to do other things in between. They're teaching all day minus lunch, if they even get a lunch break. So um, this is where the overworking, overtired teacher comes in, and it's something that isn't really is talked about among the teachers, but isn't really talked about outside of that, because we get vacations, And those vacations, most of the time, are used to refresh, regroup, so that we can show up again. Um, and even those vacations, a lot of teachers are working side hustles because they're just not making enough to be able to afford life.
Yeah. So it's like it's like this weird, unfortunate reality in a way where, teachers have, 8 hours in a day, and but they're doing 12 hours of work, right? Because it's not just teaching, it's the prep time, it's, the after school conferences with parents,
Hmm.
it's, dealing with the unruly kids, right? And all of that just takes so much out of you, and yet it's there's this expectation that you're supposed to do that, like that's what you signed up for, and
Right.
it's an unfair reality. And is it I mean, I'm not a teacher, but I imagine, when teachers come into the field, like new teachers, they get that pep talk, like, you guys are don't come into this field looking to be rich. you know, this is you have to do this job because you love to do it. So, and all this is going to happen to you, and you're going to have to do all these lesson plans, and you're going to have to deal with the unruly kids, and you're going to have to deal with the parents that want to fight you all the time,
Hmm.
on top of, the principal that don't want to listen to you, right? So I imagine there's that pep talk, but for new teachers, I mean, I don't know, I'm just assuming, there's a
I
pep
think it
talk.
depends. It depends on the place. But what I've discovered for new teachers is that the onboarding process for a new teacher is really, really important. And that doesn't always happen. So sometimes teachers are kind of just put into their classrooms and they say, okay, here you go. Here's the curriculum. Have fun. And a lot of times that ends up with a lot of burnout and teachers unfortunately leaving and not turning back.
And I think that the pandemic also exposed that,
Yeah,
with especially with the rise of COVID, and yet teachers were still expected to come in and work. I mean, it depends on who you ask. Some teachers wanted to come in, but other teachers, wanted to stay home. And so the ones that wanted to stay home and do virtual, that option wasn't available. So it also kind of exposed a lot of that,
yeah,
during the height of the pandemic.
yeah. Yeah, I was
So,
one of the teachers who wanted to come back because I was bored of online learning, but I was also early childhood. So it's a little different. I think for elementary, I think it was a little different. It was a little bit easier to navigate the online world. But as an early childhood teacher, I was ready to come back into the classroom.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess you were one of the few who weren't afraid of
I mean,
who wasn't.
I was afraid. I just couldn't be home anymore. It was like I didn't feel like I was actually teaching. I felt like I was babysitting and it was on Zoom. Um, Instead of feeling like I was a part of their growth and like really seeing them develop and being a part of a circle time with them around me, next to me, interacting rather than staring at a screen.
Right. It's especially for the younger kids, early childhood, it's easier for you to have that one-on-one interaction, that personal
Exactly.
interaction.
Hmm.
So, all right, so we're bringing it back a little bit. All right, so overworked, underpaid, there's the expectation, don't come into this field looking to be rich. Um, so so now I'm wondering, is it something is it entirely based on the environment? Like, I'm wondering, like, are are there teachers that are doing something wrong and kind of bringing that upon themselves, being overworked?
No,
Okay.
I think teachers are just overworked in general, and it's harder when you are coming in as a new teacher. So as the veteran teachers have a rhythm to their day most of the time, and they know how to space out their weeks. And there are so many people out there who can help you do exactly that, make your day more productive, make sure that you're managing your time properly. There are support systems, um, but unfortunately it's not in every school, and sometimes you have to reach out outside of your district. And then in terms of new teachers get a lot of stuff handed to them and given to them, including a class of 25 kids, and sometimes they just don't know how to manage in their classroom and manage getting things done so that they don't have to bring it home, so they don't lose that sense of who they are outside of teaching, and so that they don't get consumed in their teaching career. Instead of teaching being their whole life, it should be a part of their life, and that's what new teachers are struggling with right now. They need the support, they need the help, and they're not always getting it.
So support like what?
So support like helping them to manage time in the classroom, how to use their time in a productive way. Um, Support in the sense of how to take a curriculum and write plans that are developmentally appropriate, that are engaging and interactive, and ways for your students to really understand those things that you're teaching them, whatever it is. Um, and then there's also the support of outside of the classroom, like knowing how to protect your time and your energy while you're in the classroom so that you can go outside of the classroom and live your life, so that you're not consumed by lesson planning and prepping and whatever else you have to do for the classroom. So it's kind of a balance, and helping to support you both in the classroom and also outside of the classroom, and help you figure out what that balance might look like. Now, the balance isn't always 50-50. Sometimes teaching will take priority and it'll look more like 60 or 70-30. And sometimes life will take priority for whatever reason, whether it's something's going on in the family, or you have a baby, or you deal with a loss of some sort. So sometimes family and life outside of the classroom will take that the majority of your time and your energy. But again, there's always going to be a balance of some sort, so that you can manage your classroom and also have that life that you want outside of the classroom.
Awesome. All right, so let's dive into that now. So
Mm-hmm.
what are some things that teachers can do to make their jobs easier, to have that life outside of the have a life outside of the classroom? What can teachers do? Give us some tips.
Well, the biggest one I would say is setting boundaries. Boundaries are really important. And sometimes teachers can feel like the boundary that they're setting doesn't go along with what their administration wants, or feels is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so they won't set that boundary, and they'll do what they think their admin wants them to do, whether that's working at night and answering emails at all times of the day and night, or lesson planning, or being available for phone calls during the evenings, after hours. So all those things can take part in, like, can play a big role in how a teacher sets boundaries. And so setting boundaries is really making sure that your life and teaching are separate, and that you don't get consumed in your teaching. So for me, when I was in the classroom full time, my boundary was I don't do work outside of the classroom unless, like, it's needed to get done and I didn't have time during the day to do it. And I always limited myself, even when I did do work outside of the classroom. So I never let myself get to the point where I was working every night outside of the classroom. Um, Another boundary was not answering emails past a certain time and leaving the emails for the next day. And that's okay. You are not, as a teacher, you are not on call 24/7. You don't need to be. Um, Other boundaries can be uh, leaving work at work, not taking your work home with you during the week or on the weekends, and really leaving it at work, figuring out what you're going to prioritize for that day, what you need to get done by the end of the week, and figuring out how to manage that time. And if that means that you need to reach out to someone who helps with that stuff, then reach out. There are courses, there are programs, one on one programs, there are support systems if you don't have one inside of your school as a whole.
Mm. I mean, those are reasonable tips, I think. Um, I would also throw in, like, ask yourself, like, is this some kind of pigging back of what you said, like asking yourself, like, can this wait?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this urgent? Is this something that can wait a couple hours? Is this something that can wait until tomorrow? Is this something that I need to do right now, or can this wait?
Exactly.
Um, so I mean, I think that's another thing that will help teachers, is just asking, kind of prioritizing the urgency of whatever the task is. So it's just asking yourself, like, can this wait?
Yeah.
Um, is it also safe to say, especially if, let's say, you don't really have a choice in how you do the curriculum, to, like particularly with tutoring, my thing is like less is more, so
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to cram everything into one week, or you less is more, space it out, more quizzes, more tests, so something like that. So is it safe to say, um like, you don't have to do so much in one time?
I think it really depends on the school and on the district, because a lot of times a curriculum can seem very overwhelming, and especially because you have to go through that curriculum by the end of the school year. Um, but I think there is a way to manage it and to figure out how to get the information across in a timely manner. And then if some children don't understand whatever you're doing, you can split them into small groups and you can work with those kids who are not understanding and help them catch up with the rest of the class. So I think there are ways to take the curriculum and follow the curriculum without um, making yourself crazy. And that can be hard at the beginning. It really can. It can be hard at the beginning, especially if you're brand new to a school or you're brand new to teaching. It can be really challenging to figure out how to not only bring the curriculum into the classroom, but make sure that all your students' needs are met during that time.
So we were talking, a thought just came to me. We were talking before about support from veteran teachers. Like, is teaching like cutthroat? Is it dog eat dog? Like, is it, will a veteran teacher support a new teacher? Is it seen as competition? I don't know if you can shed some light on that.
So my biggest line is collaboration over competition. Um, in teaching, listen, it depends on the teacher. Every individual is different, um, and some teachers do find it competitive. But so many teachers are there to collaborate with one another, are there to help each other. So I worked in an early childhood center that was all about collaboration and was all about community. And I have never, ever worked in another school that had that kind of love and affection for other teachers and really like wanting to bring out the best in every teacher. So if I ever needed help, I knew I could go across the hall and ask the other teacher for help. If I needed an idea for some kind of art project, um, I knew I could go across the hall or down the hall and say, hey, this is what this is what I'm teaching this week. Do you have any ideas for me? That way, I think veteran teachers and new teachers can kind of come together and collaborate with one another, because new teachers a lot of times have really good fresh ideas, and veteran teachers a lot of times, depending on the veteran teacher, not everybody's like this, but a lot of times can get stuck in their ways, and it can be really refreshing to put veteran teachers and new teachers together to collaborate and see what they come up with. And I think it's also really important for all teachers to remember that collaboration is the way to move forward in your teaching career and to really bring the best for your students.
So I mean, of course it depends on the teacher, but to emphasize that point, like it's helpful to lean on our colleagues, right? So
Exactly.
you may feel like you're all alone, but you're not alone. You talk to your, you talk to your fellow teachers. You talk to a veteran teacher who's been through it.
And and my biggest thing, if you don't have that kind of support and community inside your school, look outside of that. There are so many teachers on Instagram and on TikTok and on Facebook, and there are so many communities that you can be a part of outside of your school where you will find that collaborative spirit. So even if you don't have that in school, it's okay. You can really look outside of that and find your group, find your community that really speaks to you.
Awesome. And yeah, like there's Facebook groups, and there's like a bazillion teacher Facebook groups. So whatever, if you're not getting it from your school for whatever reason, you can, social media. I mean, social media is a dangerous thing, but it's also a beautiful thing. So it's a way for people to come together and share ideas. There's a lot of like websites that are out there if you need ideas on like what to teach, how to teach it.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there you can find. A great resource is Teachers Pay Teachers. There's a lot of free stuff, and there's also a lot of paid stuff. And it's for, I think, pre-K through like 12th grade. So you can really find whatever your age range is, and see what they have to offer, get ideas from there. So a lot of teachers do that as a side hustle, and they put their stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers and sell it and let other teachers use it as they please. So it's a great resource. And as you said, Facebook groups are amazing. There's a ton of them. And Instagram and TikTok have a lot of different teachers who have side hustles that support teachers in different aspects. So for me, it's more of supporting you in the classroom so that you have a life outside of the classroom, and helping you to really find that work-life balance or integration. There are some teachers who help with behavior management in the classroom. There are some teachers who help with productivity in the classroom. So like there is a ton of information out there and a ton of resources for teachers to really get that support and find that community.
Awesome. So what can parents do to support teachers? I know we're putting a lot on teachers, and there is some personal responsibility on behalf of teachers, but in terms of parents, what can parents do to support teachers?
I think the biggest thing is show them that you appreciate them. Even if something is happening that you are not happy with in terms as a teacher, show them that you respect them enough to go to them and to talk to them about it rather than going behind their backs. So I've seen a lot of teachers saying like a parent emailed the principal instead of coming directly and talking to me about something that was going on in the classroom. So that's one. I mean, I think a way of appreciating teachers and supporting teachers is showing them by thanking them for being their kid's teacher, by gifts are sometimes a thing. It really depends on the school and the whether or not the parents can afford to do that. But a lot of times teachers do appreciate those gifts. And honestly, if teachers are inviting them into the classroom, show them that you care, show them that you're there to like really be a part of the classroom, and thank them at the end. I think the biggest thing that teachers are feeling is that they're not being supported by administration, by parents, by whoever, the outside world, which is common, but it's come to light now. And the biggest thing you can do is just thank them. And even if things are not going well for your child in the classroom, talk to the teacher about it, see if you can work together, because the teacher really, honestly, teachers want to work with parents and want to figure out what's best for the parents and for their kids. If you first, they can't help. And a lot of times I've been there, and it feels like a stab in the back that I wasn't spoken to first. Because as a teacher, you're there to support their child, but you're also there to support the family, to help the family through whatever it is that's going on with their child. On my podcast, actually, I'm having a guest talk about how to support families during grief or loss. And I think that's also a big part of it. Like, teachers need to feel like they're appreciated and like they are a part, because it is, as much as it's about your child as a parent, the teachers also want to see your life, your family, who you are. They want to make that connection with you. And when they make that connection with you, it's important for them to also feel like they can come talk to you and you can come talk to them if there's ever a problem. So I think that's like the biggest thing at the end of the day, is like to really show teachers that you appreciate them, that you're thankful for everything that they do. And even if you guys don't necessarily agree, which does happen, still talk to the teacher first, then figure out how to get those outside resources to come as a community and work together to make things better. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So show the teacher that you appreciate them. If you want to give gifts, that's fine, but
It's
show
not
definitely
necessary though.
not necessary. And show a simple thank you, a simple, just a conversation, not going above, but going to the teacher face to face and working out any issues, as opposed to going above and going to the higher ups. But if it can
Yeah.
be worked out on the lower level,
Yeah.
you know
I think also you need to remember, like, you're talking to a teacher, but if you had an issue with a colleague at work, what would you rather them do? Would you rather them go up above your head, or rather than come talk to you first and see if you can resolve it? That's kind of how I think of it. It's still a working relationship, whether or not you're a teacher in the school or you're a parent. So instead of going behind the teacher's back, I think it's more, it's just better to talk to them. And then if you can't resolve the issue, then you go up even further, like you would do for if you and a colleague had an issue at work. It's kind of how I think of it.
But then what about parents that are not comfortable talking to the teacher, or don't like the teacher, or there's there might be bad blood between them. Like, I can see some reasons why you would want to go to above, as opposed to talking to
Yeah,
them directly. So
of
what do you say
course.
to
So
those
I
people?
I think if there is any kind of bad blood, then the higher ups can kind of navigate that bad blood. But I think a lot of times when there is bad blood between teachers, the higher ups are already aware of it, whether it's from the teacher or from the parents. They're already aware, and what the higher ups should be doing is getting the teacher and the parents together to figure it out and then kind of mediate that conversation to help. So when I was in that situation, I didn't like the fact that they went to the director, and the reason is because I didn't have any bad blood with them, and I really took care of their child. Like, I loved their child, and what ended up happening is that they didn't communicate properly with me, and they just didn't feel like their child was ready for school yet. He was very young, understandably so. There were some issues in the classroom, but no issues between the two of us, like between me and her parents. So I think when there's bad blood, it's a little bit different, just because if there is bad blood, first of all, higher ups should absolutely know about it, and higher ups should be mediating the conversations to help kind of help everybody like stay calm and not get to the point where they're angry. They're thinking, I mean, if you're in a private school, they're thinking of pulling out, or they're thinking of homeschooling rather than sending public. So I think in that situation, it's very different. But I think if there's bad blood, going behind the teacher's back could be just a little bit like off-putting for the teacher.
That's fair. That's a fair point to make. There's always a reason for. It's always better to work it out with the teacher directly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's the first line of defense, right? You want to do the lower level first before you go to the higher level. So as a way to make sure it doesn't get any worse. So now we're gonna wrap things up soon. So now, in terms of self-care, bringing it back to the teacher now. So we talked about, not checking your emails at night or leaving things at work, or or if it's possible, less is more, not doing so much at one time, asking yourself, can this wait? Or even taking, I'll even throw in, make sure you eat something, like small things, like eat something, go to the bathroom, drink something, take a mental break wherever you can. So are there any other tips so now, what do you say to the teachers that say, that's impossible? I have all these deadlines to meet. I have all these quotas to meet. And, what do you say to the teachers that say that's impossible?
I think it all goes back to asking yourself what your priority is. And I think one thing that teachers need to remember is that although burnout has become the norm, it shouldn't ever be your norm. It should never even be discussed. And part of avoiding that burnout is taking the time. You can start with 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. You can start with the 5 minutes, even if it's just sitting in your car and blasting the radio for 5 minutes. Or like, really, that's 5 minutes of you doing what you want to do and taking the time for yourself. 5 minutes is not a big ask. And I think you work up to the point where you can take half hour, 40 minutes. And I think, so if a teacher is telling me I don't have time, first ask yourself if this is a priority, if it really needs to get done today, or if it can wait until tomorrow. And second, start with 5 minutes. Start by doing something for 5 minutes, even if that's reading 2 pages in a book or 3 pages or whatever, however many pages that is in 5 minutes. Or taking 5 minutes to do a 5-minute meditation. All of those things can be part of your routine in your day and only take up 5 minutes. So it doesn't have to be more than once a day. That 5 minutes can be done in whatever way, and you build on that. As you start figuring out what your priorities are, how to set those boundaries for yourself at work and at home, then the 5 minutes can turn into 10. And then the 10 minutes can turn into 15. And if you can't do more than 15 right now, stay at 15 for the next 3 months. And if you feel like you need longer, add another 5 minutes and figure out how you can make 20 minutes work. Even if you break it up in 10-minute and 10-minute. So I think it's all about asking yourself what the priority is, setting those boundaries, figuring out what those boundaries are, and taking it one step at a time. Don't try 45 minutes every day if that's not possible for you. Do 5. 5 minutes is more plausible for someone who's feeling overwhelmed. You can take 5 minutes, intentionally rest, find something that you want to do, and move on with your day. And once 5 minutes feels too short and you think you can lengthen that time, lengthen it. Great, amazing. So yeah, those are really that would be my biggest piece of advice, is start small and work up to the longer period of time in terms of self-care.
Awesome. So I'm just wondering if it's also safe to say that, while there are systemic pressures, it still does come down to personal responsibility. So, it is up to you to take care of yourself, and it is up to you to organize your day better, to find easier ways to teach your classes and not be so stressed out. I'm just wondering, like, is it safe to, while there's some things you can blame things on, but it also still comes down to you, and you have that control over your life.
Yeah, I think it is 100% up to you. There are always going to be pressures. It doesn't matter if it's from work or from your home life or from your family. It doesn't really make a difference. There's always going to be some kind of pressure to get something done, to do something by a certain time. It doesn't matter what field you're in. And I think the biggest thing is you need to make that time for yourself. You need to figure out what that time is and when you're going to make sure that you do it. Because at the end of it, if you don't, that's where burnout comes up. And that's where you end up being desperate for that help and feeling like you don't know where to go from there, and feeling like burnout is just going to be your MO for the rest of the year, because you go and you don't make time for yourself. So yes, I think it is really up to that person, and the responsibility falls on you. If you know that you can't go and you need that 5 minutes, then make that 5 minutes happen. Even if it's during a special, you close the door and you stretch. Like, it doesn't what you do, as long as you're taking that 5 minutes to breathe and take it for you.
Awesome. Beautiful. All right. So, we'll start to wind things down now. We briefly talked about burnout, but, do you have any final words of wisdom you'd like to impart on our audience?
Don't let burnout be your norm. Change it. And if you need help, ask for support. Whether that's from your higher ups at school, whether that's from a veteran teacher, or from someone who you find on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, etc.
Simply put, beautiful. All right. Well, Adva, thank you so much for joining me again. And thank you so much for today. Today was very enlightening. So let's go ahead and do your promo.
Amazing.
All right, you guys. So you can find Adva. She doesn't have a lot of social media, but that's all right. She is on Instagram. Her handle is Shaping Little Minds Podcast. So follow her on Instagram. You can also follow her on LinkedIn. It is just her name, Adva Hanan. So look up her name and follow her on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to her via email. So if you have any questions, concerns, maybe you need some tips, maybe you need some advice, or anything that's just burning, and you just need her to hear it, reach out to her via email. The email is ah.education.consultation@gmail.com. So for those of you watching this on video right now, all this information is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen. But if you're listening to this on audio, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any kind of podcast platform, I did not forget about you. All of this information is in the description, so I encourage you to check out our description and get her contact information. But however you are taking in this show, whether you are watching it or whether you're listening to it, this information is at your fingertips. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. So once again, you can find Adva on Instagram. Her handle is Shaping Little Minds Podcast. She's also on LinkedIn. Just type in her name, Adva Hanan, and you could reach out to her via email. It is ah.education.consultation@gmail.com. And she also has a podcast. If you didn't pick that up already, she also has a podcast called Shaping Little Minds. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcast. So, Adva, do you want to tell us about your podcast?
So it is a podcast for early childhood educators, and will support. It basically gives you advice, gives you tips and tricks you can implement into your classroom. I talk about self-care on it. Actually, that's one of the podcast episodes. But I also talk about life outside of teaching, what that can look like for you. So if you want to check it out, it's on Apple, on Spotify. You can find it there, called Shaping Little Minds.
All right, fabulous. There you go. So if you want a podcast to listen to, if you're a teacher, you're an educator, you're a tutor, maybe you need some tips, maybe you need some validation, check out her podcast, Shaping Little Minds. You can get it wherever you get your podcast. So I encourage you to check out her podcast as well. And not just to check it out, but subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast, share the episodes. Definitely take advantage of the podcast, pretty much. So check out her podcast, Shaping Little Minds. Awesome. All right, Adva, thank you again for joining me. Thank you for coming back to the show. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Awesome. All right, I'll place you backstage now. All right. And it is closing time. All right, you guys. Thank you again for watching yet another episode of Hot Topics. This was definitely an enlightening episode. So, you guys, I just want to take this time to remind you that Hot Topics is a production of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So, let's teachers are overwhelmed, you guys. Let's help these teachers out. There's only so much that they could teach in a day, and that's where a tutor comes in, right? So a tutor comes in to complement that, to supplement or complement, to complement that. So if you are looking for a tutor for your child, or maybe a teacher recommended that you look into tutoring, reach out to us. Our website is www.astepAheadTutoringServices.com. You can also email us at success@astepAheadTutoringServices.com. You could also call or text us. Our number is 347-762-2838. You could also find us on social media. You could find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Eventbrite, and WhatsApp. So you could find us on social media. I also encourage you to follow us as well. So there's so many ways that you could reach out to us. So let us be that complement to the school, right? Help us, help teachers, help you, right? So if you're looking for a tutor, maybe you got that, promotion in doubt, or you got that report card with the negative remark, or, there's a lot going on, and you can't, it's hard, you can't handle it, you feel like you can't handle it, reach out to us. Our tutors are available. Again, I will give you that website. It is www.astepahedtutoringservices.com. So find a tutor today. We offer one-on-one tutoring and test prep, as well as editing and proofreading, college counseling. We do virtual workshops as well. So we provide a variety of resources for you to support you and your child. So reach out to us for a tutor today. And while you're at it, I encourage you to let us know what you thought about this episode for today. So if you're watching on video, let us know what you thought about today's episode. Drop a comment below, drop a note. Let us know your thoughts about today's episode. If you're listening on audio, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or Stitcher or Spreaker, or any of those other ones, if you're listening to this on audio, drop a comment, drop a rating, let us know your feedback, let us know what you thought about this episode today. I definitely will appreciate your feedback, so please let us know your thoughts about today's episode. All right, I'm trying to think of what else is there. What else do I want to say? It's been a while. But either way, thank you guys for listening to this episode or watching this. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. And I hope you guys took a lot from it. And I hope you guys were enlightened by it. And, thank your teachers. Your teachers do a lot of work for you. And for your child. So, don't look at teachers and say, well, this is the job that you signed up for. No, it's not the job that they signed up for. There are things that can change. And, teachers need your support. So I encourage you, thank your teacher, support your teacher. Gifts are not necessary. If you want to give a gift, that's fine. But, a simple appreciation will do. So appreciate your teachers, you guys. Thank your teachers. Show them your love. Show them your support and support them, right? Back them up. Teachers need to be paid more. So definitely, call your congressman, call your senator, and get some laws passed. Like, hey, pay teachers more and support public schools and well, support schools in general. Before someone says something, support schools in general. So contact your senators, contact your congressmen, get more support for schools and support teachers and support higher pay for teachers. All right, you guys, that is my spiel for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to you joining me at the next episode. Thank you, guys. I am now signing off. Bye, you guys.